Hello, this is Vern. Hey, Vern on the forum. If you're seeing this video, you've probably downloaded the save and load bone scripts. Um, and I'm just going to do a quick demonstration of how it works, how to install it, and that type of thing. I guess the first thing I'd want to do is show you how to install it. Um, I think the rule of thumb now with version 9 of Anime Studio is to if you want to put in your own custom scripts is to create your own custom content folder. Now I'm doing this on a Mac, which is probably the location of this is in a different spot on Windows. I'm not sure exactly. I haven't checked that out yet. On the Mac under the Help menu, and like I said on Windows, it might be in a different spot, but when you install Anime Studio, you can create a custom content folder, which is very, very useful. It allows you to put additional scripts and other items into a separate folder from the application, and then this keeps the clutter down, and you don't have to hunt through a pile of stuff to find the custom stuff that you've added. You can also turn it off and remove all your custom items. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what to do after you've downloaded and unzipped the save and load bone script file. I'm going to show you how to install it. Okay, so here's the folder. I've unzipped it, and it creates, and what you'll see is you'll see a README file, and then there are four files. There's a ping image for each of the two scripts that you need. You need the save script and the load script. The ping images, if you're installing it in Anime Studio Pro as a menu item, you don't need the ping images. If you're installing it in either Anime Studio Pro or Debut as a button activated script, then the ping images help identify the button in the toolbar. And basically what you're going to be doing is you're going to be copying either the two Lua script files or all four of these files. You'll either be copying them into the menu script folder or into the tool folder. So let me start with the easy installation for pro users into the menu script folder. Let me get to Anime Studio. All right, so the first thing I want to do just to speed this up is I do have a custom folder set. And so I'm just going to say go to Open Custom Content Folder. Now, as you can see here, this is a duplicate of the standard application installation of all the support files for Anime Studio, but this allows you to put extra stuff in here. And as you can see, all these folders are all empty because I haven't added anything to this custom folder except in the script. So here's my scripts folder, and I'm going to open that up. And let's see what we've got here. And then here we have some extra tools in my tool folder. There's nothing in utilities, there's nothing in script resources, but then in menu, I do have my own custom folder. This is HubuMedia, my company that I work for, and I have some scripts that I use all the time. And in here under Bones, and you can set this up any way you want. You could just throw the scripts right into the menu just loose in here. It's helpful to put them in a folder. And generally, I like to keep things organized. So I've put it in my HubuMedia folder under Bones, and you can create any folder structure you like. The new version of Anime Studio, I believe it's the 9.2 update, allows for further nesting of scripts. So I'm going to show here we have load bone animation, ping, animation Lua, save bone. Now what I did was I did put the image files in here, and it doesn't seem to have any ill effect. So that's a nice way to keep it organized. And basically by putting it in here and then relaunching Anime Studio, those menu scripts will then appear under the scripts menu. So under scripts, I have HubuMedia, I have Bones, and I have Load Bone and Save Bone. Those scripts are available to me. And like I said, those are copied to your Anime Studio Pro custom folder and placed inside the menu under scripts. You go to menu and then you create a subfolder or put it in one of the other folders. If you don't want to waste time, I think putting it in subfolders is a good idea to organize it. So that's how you would install it as a menu script. Now, debut users can't do this because the menu scripts aren't available in the debut version. So there's a trick to that. The scripts work exactly the same way. You just have to do a few extra steps to make them work. And I'm going to demonstrate that right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to quit out of Anime Studio, and I'm going to move the scripts from my menu script folder. I'm just going to move all 4 of these files, and this would be the same thing. You would just transfer them from the download. I'm going to now drag them down and put them into the tool folder. All right, so now I have the script file, which is .lua, and the image file for the icon, which is .ping, and it's in my tool folder. Now there's one additional item that you have to change. In order for it to work as a button, you have to change your tool list.txt file. Now it's critical that you use a standard plain text editor to do this. So I'm going to go here to the one that I use, which is called BBEdit. This is a commercial product. It costs money. However, any plain simple text editor will work. Notepad, simple text, anything that edits and saves plain, ordinary, vanilla ASCII text. And that's important. You don't want to get strange line enders or any kind of word processing gobbledygook in there. Now, as you can see in this window, I've got the actual script files are open, and I also have my tool list text file. And as you can see down here, this is the code that I added for the tool. And all of this is documented in the README file and also in the actual pop-up window of the script itself. You can get all this information. It's also on the website. There's instructions there, but I just thought I'd do an interactive video. So what I did was I added these 2 lines of text. I added a button instead of tool. I created button, and then I had the name of the script without the extension. So and then a tab, a space and a tab. Basically, the best way to do this when you're adding this is to either copy it straight from the code that I've given you, or to copy and duplicate another one and change it. That way everything's the same. So like you can come down here and just copy, insert text, and what I've done is I've put it under the bone category of the grouping within this text file, the tool list text. I know this seems kind of funky and complicated for casual users, but it really isn't. It's like editing a preference file or setting up any kind of. It's pretty standard, and it makes sense. So this is a listing of all your tools in the different groups within the tool palette, and all we're doing is we're adding 2 new buttons to our bone category. And so, like I said, it's easier to just copy and paste another button, copy and paste the name of the file that you're linking to. So there you go. And then I would just do that twice. And then you can change the order that the buttons appear in the tool palette. If you don't add these 2 lines in, and you have those 2 tools installed, they won't function because they'll be tools. Buttons have a different functionality. A button, you click on it and it activates. A tool, you click on it and do something on the screen. So you have to add these to your tool list so that they activate the script properly. So once you've done that, you save your file, and then we're going to open up Anime Studio once again. So I'm loading Anime Studio Pro. And then my default character file comes up, and now you can see I have these 2 new buttons right here. I have the save bone with the arrow pointing to the right, So, I'm trying to indicate that it's going out of the file, and then this one is coming into the file. So load bone animation is pulling the content in. And so this goes out and that goes in, and it works just the same. Let me open up my test file. This is a character I created for Smith Micro. And right now he has no animation at all. So for demonstrating purposes, I'm going to, now he does have actions. So, but just to demonstrate this, I'm going to load up one of the actions I have for this guy. And I'm going to insert a copy. All right, so now we have an animation, and there's a lot going on here. There's bone locking, bone scaling. There's all kinds of stuff going on in this file, as you can see. And also, too, there's two separate bone animations that need to be loaded. One for the body and one for the head. I have a lot of bones being activated in the head file. However, and that would be done separately. However, with this particular designed rig, yes, no, I take that back. This does not have a control rig in the parent bone folder. Okay, so here we go. So I have this now, and I'm ready to export. I want to export this, so I'm going to go to my Save Bone Animation. I'm going to click on that, and a little window pops up. Very simple. There's not a lot of decisions to be making here. It calculates what the last frame of the document is. It starts at 0 by default. I have to remove this warning. Keyframe interpolation settings cannot be saved. That isn't true. The keyframe interpolation settings are saved. So I just have to eliminate that. So let me. So I'm going to hit OK. Now what happens is this pops up. And you're going to be saving the file, and you have to give it a name and an extension. So I'm going to call it test.txt. Just stick with the text extension, and like I said, it doesn't even need an extension per se. It just depends on I think on certain platforms like Windows or Mac, it might need an extension, but basically the script itself only reads in, it just reads in the text. So I'm going to save this little text file. I'm going to replace the one that's there because I don't care about that. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to revert this file. No saving. I just want to make sure there's no animation. There's no keyframes anywhere in this file. As you can see, there's no animation. The script also will import and save, export and save layer ordering. So this file also had a lot of layer ordering going on. So, it saves all the animation of the parent layer that you're loading the bone animation into. It does not save animation information of any of the layers below it, only the top level layer animation. So now in order to complete this process, you can do this from frame 0 or frame 1. It just depends on what you want to do. Basically, if you're doing from frame 0 and you do the load animation, it will load from that point. I like to go to frame 0. If I know the character files are the same, it doesn't really matter, but it can set the all the bone length and bone offset and that type of thing. So I like to go to frame 1 to load my animation. So I'm going to click the load animation button, and I get this nice big window with all these choices to be made, but they're all they're standard choices to be made for the bone properties. And also too, at the bottom of the script pop-up is our instructions that tell you what you need to do and why you're making choices. So each section is covered pretty well, and there's also a README file with the script that tells you what to do. And basically, it's pretty straightforward. Overlay animation means if you already have animation in the character that you don't want to erase, then you say overlay. And then what that'll do is, supposing you already have rotation animation on some bones and you're only importing translation. So like down here, we would only animated position. That's supposing we already have rotation and we only want to import position. So by clicking overlay, what it's going to do is it's going to add the animated position to the animated angle keyframes, and it won't erase everything. The other option at the top here is use bone names instead of bone IDs. Anime Studio by default uses bone IDs for everything. The bone IDs are created um, by Anime Studio. Whenever you create a new bone, there's an invisible ID number that's added to that bone internally that you can't see, and that's how referencing is done to control bones and make them do things. Um, in this case, that can be good. That's the best way to do it. Although it does actually animate and import keyframes for all the bones rather than just the bones you want. So if let's say you have two character rigs that are almost the same, but they're completely different, but they have the same bones like forearm, foot, neck, head, but they're completely set up completely differently, and the bone IDs were everything's completely different, but the bone names are exactly the same. If the bone names are the same between two files and you check use bone names instead of bone IDs, then it will only apply animation to bone names that match between the two files, and it'll ignore bones that don't match. So this is a good way to have sort of flexible animation files that can be used between dissimilar character setups. So you could have two completely differently designed rigs for, say, a character file, but as long as the bones are similar in structure, and as long as they have the same names, you can import the file. I don't use this because I generally created this for the same character. I wanted to be able to import animation into a character in a file that was already set up. So for example, supposing I'd set up a file and I did some animation and now I needed the character to do a walk cycle, and I didn't have that really nice walk cycle that I created in a completely separate file with the exact same character. There's no way to copy and bring that into another file. And this allows you to do that. You would open up that other file, export the bone animation, and then open up the file you want it in, and it loaded in, and you've got it now. So it's sort of like being able to save external actions for a character. Now here are the bone properties that you can bring in. You can just check them all. Or you can selectively check what you want to bring in. Now, a lot of this stuff is setup stuff that would be for frame 0, so to speak, or um, bone constraints. So it does bring in bone constraints. It'll bring in, angle limits, all these attributes. But if your character is already set up and you don't need all that stuff, and all you're bringing in is the animation, then you can just check these 4 items here, or whichever ones you want. As you can see here, all of this stuff has to do with constraints and constraint controls. Down here we have non-animated properties, and these are frame 0 properties: the length of the bone, the strength of the bone, and the offset. So you can bring those in as well. Like I said, if the character is exactly the same as the original, the only 4 animated properties you need are right here. This is the length, the scale, angle, position, and bone lock. And that's all I'm bringing in for this character because it's exactly the same as what I exported from. I don't need any of this other stuff. Layer properties. Down here are the layer properties. We have layer order, which I'm going to need that. Layer flip. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to check all these because there's really no reason not to. And basically it'll bring everything in. And this is important because I did a lot of layer ordering animation to move, the hand in front of the face and the foot behind the legs, and et cetera, et cetera. So, and layer visibility, I don't believe that this top layer, and remember, this is only for this top layer. So that's why this is interesting. The layer order keyframes are in the parent layer. They are not on the layers below it. The animated layer order is actually part of the top layer. So I'm going to hit OK, and then I get my little pop-up to select my text file that I created. So I select it, and there we go. I have now successfully imported that animation directly into the file. Now this particular character, and you can see here because I had layer 1 selected, the animation is offset by 1 frame. I should have been on frame 0, and then it would have started at frame 1 to bring everything in. But that's a minor glitch. And so now when I run through this animation also uses a lot of scripting to control switch layers and things like that. So now let's take a look at it, and you'll see that his face isn't getting animated. And that's because I didn't export the head bone animation. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to undo this. All right, just one undo, and I've completely eliminated everything. I have to load that action for the head layer. So I'm going to go in here to the head layer. Well, actually, I just loaded in here. I'm going to say insert copy. Okay, and then I'm going to go to the head layer, and I'm going to export under, my exports, I'm going to click the save bone animation for the head. I'm going to say okay, and I'm going to call this head test.text. And then I'm going to revert, open recent. I'll just open this up. Don't save the changes, wait for it to load up, and there we go. So now we have this again. So now I'm just going to run through the whole thing again. I'm going to say load animation for the body. Hit OK, and hit this, and there we go. We've got the bone animation for the body, and now I need the bone animation for the head. So I'm going to run the script again. And I'm going to click head test, and there we go, and we're done. And now we have the head animation has been imported properly. That was missing from the last time I did it because I didn't export the head keyframes. And that's because, as I said, the bone export only does the parent bone. It doesn't do any animation keyframes of the lower layers. Maybe at some point in the future I'll be able to include all of the sublayer information. It's very complicated and very complex to do all that, so I'll have to see if that's even possible to do, especially with all the points, and yeah, we'll see how that works out. But this does a really good job of saving external files that can be used on multiple characters, especially if you're doing especially if you have the same characters, and what happens is we open up a file, we start a new scene, we animate the character, and then we realize, oh, I have this great animation in another file, but you can't get it in because it's in another file. And then the only way to get that animation is to open up the other file and resave it as a new file, and then you've lost any animation you've done in any other files, and nothing is reusable. So if you have the same characters in multiple files, none of the animation is locked. You can get that bone animation out. Now, of course, this only works with bone animation. However, there's a lot of critical information that can be saved with bones. We have a new feature, which is the smart bones actions, which at this point I haven't tested thoroughly with the script, so I don't think that the smart action information is saved out. However, if the character has smart action set up ahead of time, and you want to save your animation, then it's fine. It works perfectly well. If smart, whatever's set up on the character, if the character is exactly the same, that's the key. The key is you're trying to export your information out from one file and import it into another file. That's where that's why I created this for my own use. And I'm sharing it with you guys now. I hope you can find some use for it. It works pretty well for me. Um, it does now. The original versions for a while didn't have keyframe interpolation. Like I said, the keyframe interpolation is in place, and it does get brought in. So we've got that now. That was an update to the scripting reference in a past version of Anime Studio. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you find use for the script. And like I said, if you need some help installing it, check on the forum, the Lost Marble forum. I'm Hey Vern on the forum, um, and there's lots of resources for installing scripts. Thank you.